This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Because obviously I'm watching it from afar, but Manny looks to me like a guy that's not comfortable at all with all the pressure and everything going on around him. He seems to me like a guy that's uncomfortable with all of this. Do you read the same thing? And then part two of that is he doesn't seem to me like a good communicator also. I'm just wondering what have you been able to learn about those kind of things, about the communication? And do you see the same thing as a guy that I almost feel like he's a volcano inside, that it's kind of, rumbling, and he's really uncomfortable with all this failure around him?
That's a good question. I probably haven't given it enough thought, but just looking at his body language, ooh, I think he's getting more irritated with the questions, certainly, right? And the commentary. But I also think, in terms of his communication and whatnot and his awareness, I think, you can sit here and talk about whether or not he made the right decision there at the end of the game. I thought he should have gone for 6 and not just played the clock out. I'm one of those guys that, when you got the other team reeling and you're trailing, you go for the end zone. You don't just play conservative and leave it on the foot of your 18-year-old kicker. But he looked like a guy who was confident last night. He was smiling during that whole – I don't know if you caught him on TV or not when they showed him in those huddles.
Yeah, right. Yeah, especially at the end when they thought he probably thought somebody probably said something like, all right, and he just smiled at him like, yeah, we got this one, like we're all right. When they called the timeout is what you're saying. When Virginia called the timeout on that
with
first down,
37. Yep.
Right. That he turned to him and you could tell that there was like a relief at that moment that he felt like he had it. You know what I mean? I know I saw that, but I watched the guy throughout that game and even before the game, and then it just seems to me like a guy that the pressure's getting to him. And then when I watch him interact with people, I don't know, man. It's just there's an Adam Gase feel to it. You know what I'm saying? It just I don't know, but and now that again, this is total. This is a guy from afar. I'm trying to read the body language. When he's pulling a guy aside, there was one moment where he pulled one of their players aside to tell him something. And that player didn't really focus in on his coach while he's talking to him. He kind of almost like, yeah, sure, coach. And he kind of dismissed him and kept going, in a way. And I'm just looking at a guy that I don't know. I wonder what kind of a communicator he is behind the scenes. Even when I see him come on with Joe, like when he comes on in the morning, he has no personality, bro. He doesn't know how to work. He doesn't know how to work an interview. You know what I mean? It's very, very mechanical and very cold and stuff. And I don't know, maybe he doesn't have a relationship with Joe Rose. I don't know. But everything that I see about him, I just kind of see uncomfortable. And I don't know if he really knows how to communicate with people to kind of get them trying to feel comfortable about him. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question and observation on your part. I look, having dealt with him, having spoken to him, one-on-one interviews, which I usually get once a year, as I've told you before. I feel like he's a guy who feels like he's got all the answers in his head. Okay. Like this is the approach. This is what we need to do. And he always feels like he has the right answer. Whereas, some guys, hey, man, I made a bad decision there, right? Or, hey, man, I screwed up. He doesn't see it that way. I think he's a guy who's very just sort of stuck in his ways. And I wouldn't say he's stubborn in the sense where he won't fire a coach, because obviously he's done that, right? He's changed coordinators. He's done. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of self-confidence in the sense that nothing you or I or anybody else says to him is going to affect him. He tries to be this unfazed, well, I knew that, or this is why I think this way. Like he has all the answers. And I think that's what comes off is a guy who's, I don't want to say arrogant, but certainly he's got all the answers, right? Like sometimes you got to be human. Like, hey, you know what? I didn't think about that. Or, hey, I didn't That's a good point. And I don't think he does that enough. I don't think there's enough sort of that interaction. And I don't know behind the scenes how that affects his coaches. I can tell you that the guys who left, none of them really had anything bad to say about him in terms of professionally how they worked with him. And I think, the thing with Manny, more than anything, I see a guy who's just a nice guy to the players all the time. He's a player's sort of coach. And I don't know that he ever gets to the point where he intimidates any of them or makes them feel on edge. Like, hey, I'm really not going to play this week, or I screwed up. Oh man, I'm not, like, it's almost like, no, I got your back, buddy, And sometimes players, the way they react to that is they keep doing the same mistakes over and over again, right? Because they don't feel like they're letting anybody down. I think in that regard, from a psychological standpoint, I think that might be his biggest mistake is sometimes guys don't need a pat in the back. Hey, get them next time. They need somebody more forceful who's going to scare something into them, and make them really feel like, hey, I'm going to get benched. I'm not going to play this week or I'm not going to play going forward. He's done that with a couple of guys here and there, but look, you look at the snap counts from last night. DJ Ivey played 50 snaps last night. Gervin Hall played 64. It's the same dudes out there.
Gervin Hall tackles when he's not supposed to and doesn't tackle when he's supposed to.
Right. I know
with Gervin Hall, bro.
Hey, the four best players on defense, according to Pro Football Focus, that played last night. I'm not talking about a handful of snaps, but they were part of the rotation. Cam Kitchens, number 1, freshman, 2021 recruit. Chance Williams, 2020 kid. Leonard Taylor played 21 snaps. He's 3rd, and then Corey Flagg, who had the pick on the good read where he stepped in front of the box.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? None of the guys he's been coaching, they haven't learned anything, bro. Like, they're just not getting better. They're going in reverse.